All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Diamond Rivera, and you are tuned into another episode of the Live Discussions with Diamond podcast, all the way from New York City. We are here on this beautiful Sunday night. Well, in New York City, it's raining a bit. And today we have a very, very special guest, all the way from North Carolina. But before we get started, everyone, a big shout out to my DC family, especially the one and only DJ Cello, me here representing with the DJ Cello hoodie. As well, people, we are here supporting DJ Cello and his recovery fund. And for everyone that is tuning in after this interview, a link will be provided. A post will be provided with all the information where you can donate to the DJ Cello Recovery Fund. Again, big shout out to the DC fam, and definitely we wish you a speedy recovery, Sammy. And tonight, people, we have, again, like I said, a very special guest, a woman that I am truly inspired by, even from my first time meeting her all the way at Unity Dance Festival in 2019. It was an amazing experience. It was filled with whips. It was filled with just amazing amounts of dancing. But honestly, I would say it helped me create a friendship with a woman who has so much knowledge, and has contributed so much to our community. And I could say so much more, but I think this woman can say it all. And tonight, people, in the Live Discussions with Diamond podcast, we have all the way from North Carolina, Miss Jenny Geska.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so awesome. And guys, I have to just give him a shout out really quick because my day was really crazy and I was almost late getting home from showing house. And I was like a little frazzled, and he just was like, "We're just gonna take this easy. We'll just sit and talk for a second so you can get your head in the right place." I was racing home. Yeah, so it was such a funny, I don't know. Well, I know you remember. I remember when you were going overseas.
Yeah.
And I remember you were like, "Hey, I would love it if anyone could write me." I remember you just did a post, and I vowed to do that because I had a sister who was in the military, and I remember that it's hard. It's really hard sometimes, and each and every package, each and every letter can really lift spirits. So I remember writing, and I was like, "You have no idea who I am. We barely know each other, but here's let me introduce myself." And I remember just writing, hoping, I hope this lifts him a little bit, and that's all I wanted out of it. And so when we finally got to meet at Unity in 2019, it was really special. I think we just sat down and had breakfast, and we were like, "Hey, there's your face."
Yes. We kind of put the letter to the face in a sense. I believe it was me, you, Tanya, and yes, Tanya and Lawrence Tyson, all the way from the Texas area.
Yeah, that's it.
The infamous meeting. I mean, you were in the 5-6 inch heels, and I was like, wow, it's early, and she's starting early right now. But also as well, before we get started, just letting you know that this episode is sponsored by TuBachaTaRadio.com, where we'll be able to listen to this interview live and high quality. And as we talk about bachata, realizing you, Jenny, I mean, you kind of, I would say you've had your hand in everything, whether it's from the promotional standpoint, teaching standpoint, organization standpoint. I mean, what we're going to get into, especially with the creation of BailaCura and your contributions within that in your role, but also realizing how important and how kind of, I believe, a really key figure you become over the last few years in the dance community as a whole. Because I think what happens is in many different cities, whether it's New York, North Carolina, LA, what have you, there are very few people within that dance community that branch out, that start traveling and start really kind of making a name for themselves. And I think it's through the networking. I think it's through the relationships and the bonds we build with these other individuals that we probably just see for 3 days. And then, all right, Monday, got to go back to my normal life. But, being able to have this moment, as long or as short it is, to be able just to understand you, kind of have, like you said, that calming moment, just relaxing. Because we realize this past year has been really hectic and crazy. Our dance scene has kind of turned its head from a point where we couldn't wait to go to the next social that upcoming weekend. And now it's almost like a square one. We're kind of focusing even on our daily lives that wasn't involved with dance and trying to just pick up the pieces in a sense. But I think, especially with this type of platform I have, I love having artists like you because for me, I care. But I also understand how much you care for your community. So having you on, having you tell your story from your mouth, I think is truly important than someone else trying to tell your story.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been, man, it has been a year. Oof. And it was even more bizarre for me because I was, last year I wasn't present. I was out of the country for almost 2 months in Brazil. And so when everyone's like, oh, I haven't social danced in forever, I'm like, wow, I really haven't social danced in forever. I did some, obviously I wouldn't go to Brazil and not do Zouk. I did as much as my body could handle outside of the samba training. But I think I got back and then it was like, there was like a week when I got back that before everything shut down. And it was interesting because at the time, it wasn't known. They were saying it wasn't in Brazil, but it was in the US. So, but I found out had I stayed, a week longer, I would have been stuck there for.
Oh, wow.
Pros and cons, obviously, of Brazil.
I mean, yeah, and we're definitely going to get into that as well, because understanding how involved you are within the samba community, you being from North Carolina, and me also myself doing research over the years and realizing how you've taken your love for samba and you've really at one point had a group of women from your community that also shared the same passion. You guys and you ladies were able to travel and perform and kind of like, again, expose and promote this style of dance. Because most of us in the States, if we don't have classes, we just have videos we see, whether it's on YouTube, a few minutes of seeing a person doing samba. And for me, I definitely love samba dancing, the energy. I'd also say not just the energy, but the endurance that it takes. I think, yeah. And we'll get into that. But as I do with all of my discussions, I always love understanding who the artist was before the artistry. Who was, in a sense, Jenny before BailaCura, before samba? Who is Jenny Geska?
Man, this is going to go down a whole rabbit hole. So, I danced my whole life. My mom put me in dance classes when I was 2, and it was like consisted of leapfrog. And she said that 24/7, no matter what music was on, whether it was country, whether it was, Cyndi Lauper, like she's like, you never stopped dancing. You would be dancing in the living room, in the kitchen, on the couch, in the backyard. Like, didn't matter who was around, who was watching. So it just kind of grew up in that happy place that was dance. And, I danced all through my young years. I danced all through high school. At high school, I started teaching. I was basically living at my dance studio at the time because I was on the competitive team and, all technical dance. I was doing ballet, jazz, and point, and modern, everything, you name it. And that's when I started teaching little kids because my dance teacher was like, well, you're living here. So in between classes, why don't you teach, and it was kind of like a barter situation, instead of paying for classes, just teach. I know you can do it, and I'm so thankful for her. I wonder if she'll like hop on tonight because we're still in touch on Facebook, but she was such a great inspiration for me. And she just kept pushing me, and she actually got involved in the dance teams and the color guard and everything in my high school. So at a very young age, I was captain of this and that, and a lot of people hated it because I was giving the seniors instructions. But
oh man, so you were kind of the underclassmen giving the upperclassmen instruction.
Yeah, I remember it was like sophomore year, I was like captain of some of these dance and color guard teams. Hey, you know, it was a great life lesson, but definitely had some challenges.
It's question here then. So, what was it like as a dancer being in high school? Because most people I know who, like you said, have been technically and classically trained. Like you said, it's like your full life. Did you feel that in high school you could be able to separate that while having a dance life, but also kind of a social life?
It was hard. It was a lot harder. And there were days that I felt like I was maybe missing out. I never did a single sport. I did
Oh,
cheer.
dance is a sport. I
Yeah,
would
I
say.
never did sport, you know, I never did soccer, softball, or
Mhm.
field hockey, or any of the things that people were doing, other than cheerleading and the dance team and whatnot. So between everything, yeah, it was a lot. I mean, I would go, like I said, I would leave school, I would
Mhm.
go straight to the dance studio. I remember I would get there, I would have a snack. Sometimes I would eat a really early dinner because I knew I was going to be teaching and dancing all night.
Mhm.
You know, and then I would teach the babies. And then when the babies were done with their classes, it was our time, and we would have a couple hours straight of training. And then, you know, the next day, rinse and repeat, do it all over again. So like 2-3 days a week, I'd be at the studio. 2-3 days a week, I'd be at whatever activity I was doing at school. So sometimes I'd be like, oh, am I missing out on like your typical high school girl experience? Because I'm not bonding with people in the way that I see some of them are bonding. But I just would have not have traded it for the world. You know, it was all I wanted to do, and I was fine with giving up some of that social aspect. And weekends, you know, going to compete and stuff like that. I loved it. I loved every minute of it, and I loved the bond that I had with my mom and my sister. You know, because we would travel together and stuff. So, yeah.
Man, that's special because especially I myself being a dancer, man, going on 25 plus years with salsa primarily. I remember in high school I couldn't really hang out. I mean, I played a sport. I played hockey actually, varsity for about 2 years, and that helped me just understand different backgrounds, diversity. But a lot of those kids didn't understand my life of being a dancer. Like there were times I would travel. I remember too. I never told this story. I remember one of my ending my sophomore year, getting the report card, and it said you missed 29 days of school, your whole school year, and I was like, wow. And I didn't realize literally a whole month in condensed I missed because of the traveling of leaving or not going to school from a Thursday, coming back home Monday to go to school Tuesday, and not realizing a lot of that adds up, whether your teachers are giving you your homework. It's a different lifestyle for different dancers. I
Yeah.
don't know if you said you lived really in the dance studio from a young age and still being in high school or still being a teenager now teaching people older than you, but also younger than you. That responsibility, like you said, your sister as well being you and your sister and your mom being there, being that kind of support system. And I think many dancers love having that, but also many dancers sometimes don't have that support system. And
Yeah,
that's something many people take for granted. So then
definitely.
realizing, you as a dancer, through high school, what was that? Was the transition after high school kind of seamless? Like you knew where you were going afterwards, or were you kind of searching for the next thing?
Yes and no. So
Okay.
yeah, I kept dancing all through college, and I actually do have I have a minor in marketing and a minor in dance. Um,
Mm,
I think it was seamless in the fact that I had never been like I wasn't sad to leave high school. I was like, cool, on to the next. You know,
yeah.
some people might have had a hard time with that decision. I was ready. I was like, let's go. But it was. You know, and I'm trying to remember how long. I can't remember exactly how long. I did stay at the studio for a while, but then I was taking so many dance classes, and they had a program at University of Massachusetts in Boston.
Hmm.
Test out, like you would have to audition to take certain classes,
Yeah.
and if you auditioned very well, they would actually send you over to Boston Ballet to take classes there. It's like they couldn't, you know, they didn't have anything for you in the school, so they would send you to and for me, that was like, holy crap, that's huge, you
Yeah.
know. And they were tough there, but it was a huge, huge learning lesson. But it was a big eye opener for me because went from being like the girl that was always known at the studio, really like thriving there. And then all of a sudden I was like a little tiny fish in this huge pond of professional ballerinas that do this for a living. And I was like, whoa, I want to go back to the school.
Yeah.
Intimidating, you know?
No, I understand. I mean, like, I've heard those stories from dancers, like, you're in high school and you're the big fish, and now you're going to college, or you're doing those auditions now, and you're around people who've been doing it just as long, or if not longer, and who want that spot, and realizing as well that the dance world, the dance life, it can be extremely fun, rewarding, but can also take a huge toll mentally, physically, and emotionally. Because
Oh, yeah.
I tell people all the time, especially for those who are used to doing auditions, you just be understand you may not land every one. You may feel you got it, but those casting directors, they know what they want. And a lot of times, you know, you have to understand dancing takes a toll on the body. I've met many dancers that they usually have a 5 to 7 year span, and then it's kind of done. But it's also because they don't know how to train their bodies. They just kind of go 100% full speed as a teenager and don't realize 10 plus years later you can't really go that speed, in a sense, I think.
No, it's true. And so when I went to college, my major was initially exercise physiology.
Mm.
So I'm a lot of people don't know this about me. I'm a science major. I ended up getting my degree in environmental science, but initially I went to school for exercise physiology. So I learned a lot there. I was like, whoa, the contradictory world that is dance. Like some of the things we do to our body, like cold stretching and stuff like that. So it gave me like a whole different outlook on dance, and it still does. You know, if you ask any of the girls on my team, they'll tell you it warms us up much differently than, you know, someone else, because I take it from a fitness perspective at this point. So we have a proper warm up. You know, we don't just like, oh, come in and stretch. No, hell no, not in my class. I'm like, you better warm up. You get those muscles warm. We'll stretch at the end. We're into this proper.
Oh my God. And just what you said, it brings flashbacks. But before we get into that, as well, just to let you know, during our interview, we'll be having some comments coming in. There's actually a surprise. I'm gonna show this comment, but I'm also have a video I want to put out of you and this person who gave this comment, Mr. Mikey. Jenny is one of my favorite dancers. Yes, I have a video I'll be playing a little later.
Yes.
Of you and Mikey G at the Myrtle Festival.
Oh, that's one of my favorite dances.
Yes, I remember with the little hand. Yeah, you got that. I love hearing really right now your story about understanding kind of the trajectory, the journey of the height from being a young girl dancing, going into high school. Of course, it becoming more serious. You start becoming a teacher, evidently, even before you hit adulthood.
Yeah.
You going into college and having that experience, and a lot of people not understanding the way you train your body, even the way you warm up, is really important. I have to give a big shout out to Matthew Rivera and Crystal Nieves and Andrew Avila, because those three, when I was in a group years ago called Gifted Souls, I remember we would have 3 to 4 hour rehearsals, and an hour and a half or 2 hours would be solely dedicated to cardio. And I didn't get it at first, but I got it at the end because I understood, you know, what it takes to be on that stage 3 minutes and give 120%, when I've seen people gas on stage after 30 seconds. And it's like, you can tell. You can tell who really trains. So, you know, through high school, through college, dance has always really been a part of your life. And you also having, I believe, a major in environmental science.
Yep.
Were you able to take that major and kind of utilize it into your adult life?
I never really did. It was when I got that degree, it was kind of like a really strange time in my life. So I never really ended up using it. But when I tell you I use it in my own personal life, I use the knowledge of it. Obviously working in like real estate and social media now, you know, there's not a lot of room for environmental science. But I will say that it shaped my own my lifestyle so much, and I'm definitely thankful for that. It has a huge influence on the way that I handle my body, what I eat, what I drink, what I bring into my house, what I clean my house with. I've been known to be kind of a hippie. Like I learned so much. It really has a huge impact on your health, your surroundings, everything you put in and around your body. So I think that helps me a lot, as somebody as active as I am. So did I use it in my work field? No. Did I use it in my personal life? Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, but evidently you use it. And I think that's most important, because I tell people when we were in high school, I'm not using the same trigonometry equations in my everyday life. It's not happening. There's certain things we learn, and certain things that come in one ear and certain things that leave out the other ear. And realizing, like you said, you having that experience with I believe it was called exercise kinesiology.
Physiology, yeah.
Yes, with that, understanding how the body works. And like you said, you being able to do that research on what really us as Americans put in our bodies.
Ooh-wee.
And we also, it's us not doing that research, but it's also the people who are in higher positions than us not telling us. It's usually those commercials of all these fatty saturated foods that all these corporations put out, but they don't give the same amount of attention to the corporations that are telling us not to, and why.
Yeah, it's a very, in my opinion, I'll just say it, even though someone will message me later. It is, it's just the most corrupt thing I have ever. It's like we've had blinders on our whole life. Everything's been right there, but we're shaped like, this is how you think, this is what you eat, this is what you need to be healthy, this is, and then all of a sudden the blinders come off and you're like, what in God's name is going on around here?
would have been told my whole life,
Yeah, if all the factories and everything had glass walls, I mean, our life would be so different. So, and it helps in real estate too, to be honest. Example, I had a woman today she's a heavy gardener. She actually owns a nonprofit to help people become more sustainable gardening on their own. So, with having knowledge of agricultural practices and soil and stuff like that, I felt much more confident speaking to her about that kind of stuff. So it sneaks in your life in ways that you don't expect sometimes.
Gotcha. And also here we have a comment by my boy, Terry Marco, out there in Florida, saying, thank you for interviewing my favorite dancer instructor. And, I mean, Jenny, I can't lie, just from my experience of even meeting you, dancing with you in a social setting, seeing you teach, being able to film you, you are a rarity, because I would say this, and I'm going to be completely honest, from my experience of filming at events, my experience of watching teachers instruct their students, the women, not even just the women, the participants that attend your classes, whether they're male or female, I feel like they truly do learn something, but also they really pay attention to what you're saying, because there are teachers that honestly I've seen that many people just listen here and then just goes out and they do what they want. But for you, especially, for example, with your floor work, when you do your floor work classes, the reason is because I think these participants, these students understand that one wrong move can hurt you. You need to know how to do things correctly and not just go for it. You need to learn instruction, because again, it'll help you progress as a dancer, but it'll also keep you safe. It'll save you a lot of trouble.
I wish every dance instructor would be required to have at least some foundation of anatomy and physiology and how the body works, because I think that our dance would look very different.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Warm-ups and cool downs. I can't tell you how many of my current students maybe have come from a different team and they're like, oh, I never knew that. Oh, no wonder I had knee problems the whole time. Oh, and I'm like, yeah, you got to train your glutes so that you don't have to, it's those little things, or like take some time out of your heels for a second so that when you're in them, you're not dying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now here comes a really big question I would love to ask. And we definitely spoke about this from when we first saw each other, but also before that. I really do want to take the time, what you said earlier. It hit me because I remember that moment. I was going actually to basic training. It was for the Army, 2018. I vividly remember. and we had spoken. And I remember you telling me about your sister who was also in the military.
Yep.
And for me, I just want to say, kind of sidetracking, I wanted you to know it really meant the world, because at this, people don't understand. Certain people who go to basic training, you're kind of shut off from the world for X amount of months, and mentally it can take a toll.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I can tell people, I've had drill instructors rip up letters and pour toothpaste on them to
Oh
piss me off. And it was those moments of mentally, okay, I understand this stressful situation. And now I just have to visually understand people like you, people like my family and friends that have written me, that I still have their notes and letters and memories that I can say, I need to keep strong, because when you're under a situation you have no control over for quite a few months, it definitely takes a toll. So
yeah.
again, I truly thank you, and also thank your sister for her service as well. You know, it definitely means a lot, especially from someone in the dance community, but also, you know, too, so many military members, former veterans as well, that are in our dance community. It's like it's astounding. So the question now that I have is, what was that experience like being Catwoman? I definitely need to hear more about that. I know we've talked, but I don't
Yeah,
think many of us know about that experience you've had.
man. So some of you guys may have seen me at Unity in 2019 with a whip in my hands. A big, if you didn't see it, you heard it. You know, it was this big 6-foot cat whip.
Yeah.
And it was like, please explain why you know how to use this like that. So I had a lot of explaining to do. Like, what's going on here?
No, yeah, you just see it.
So when I was at UMass Boston, Six Flags, well, a company that used to staff the shows for Six Flags, Silver Tree, had put up a flyer in the dance area that was like, hey, we're looking for dancers. And I was like, that would be kind of a cool summer job. I don't know, I would do that. Let's give it a whirl and see what happens. So I auditioned and I did end up getting in. And it was so funny because when I tell you I did every role that you could possibly do at Six Flags, I'm not kidding you. I had been Daffy Duck. I had been Tweety Bird. I had been Sylvester. I had been, the dancers in the singing and dancing show. I had been a magician's assistant. This ended up becoming like a big 6-7 year chunk of my life where I was
I have to. I'm sorry. It's just like, this is.
I'm trying to see if I have like pictures, but anyway, it became a big like chunk of my life. Mm-hmm. But there was this one year. Well, I didn't start doing Catwoman in the stunt. They were like, we need a short brunette who can follow fight choreography, and I was like, no, not your girl. No, you can't do that. Mm-hmm. And they were like, yeah, you can do it. I was like, no. Anyway, we kind of got talked into it. Mm-hmm. And I remember like this particular show was first in Agawam, Massachusetts. And I remember they would bring in these stunt coordinators to teach you these things. And this is all, I'm like, I'm a dancer. I don't understand what you want me to jump off a building. What do you mean you want me to jump off a building? So I remember my first year, like they broke me in. I remember just sitting here. I had to do this high fall into a vat that was, in the show, it was filled with acid and I was supposed to be Spice. Which is a storybook character, in the Batman series and in the comics. And I remember just crying. I remember like my friend was like, take your butt. And like, he didn't say butt, he said whatever. But he was like, put it on this quarter, like right now. And I remember I just jumped. And I was like, okay, that wasn't so bad. You had to learn to fall properly. You had to learn to exhale so that you didn't like, your lungs, they're sensitive. So it was just a very scary feeling. And I did it. And I was like, all right, not so bad. So I spent like a year or two there doing that show. I did a couple shows in New York where I played Jennifer Montoya, which is another like comic book Batman character. And then they launched the Catwoman show. And I was like, oh man, I don't know about that one. But at this point I'd been with them for quite a while and they were like, no, you can go to New Jersey and you can do Catwoman and you can do the magic show and the dance shows and all the shows. Yeah. So I was a swing. I would just learn all the shows. But Catwoman was a very, very demanding show. So they brought in, I'm trying to remember, they brought in a couple different stunt coordinators. I've worked with like Alex Daniels from Dodgeball. You know, he coordinated Dodgeball and whatnot. But we would have to start training months out. And when I tell you training, they would beat us so hard. So much running and fighting, and you're on harnesses and all this crazy stuff. I mean, Catwoman, you know, the shows were in New Jersey. You would do 3 to 5 shows a day. And I remember they just, you know, they're like, here's your whip. Okay, it's time to start learning. And I had like goggles on.
Yeah.
And all that. I mean, I cut myself so many damn times with this whip because it hits your skin.
Yeah.
I mean, you're bleeding. So I got the hang of it. And obviously by the end of the season, doing 3 to 5 shows a day, you know, 3 to 5 days a week, you get the hang of it. So, but I remember having to wear like this triple layered leather catsuit. It was based on the old comic book, like the old Catwoman.
Oh, yes. I remember that.
Full with a hood with the ears and goggles. And then they would just fog the entire show. And you're like, I just hope I don't die. Like that was like the, you know, the thought that would go through your head. And gloves and boots up to your knees. And I mean, it was brutal. When I tell you that I would finish a show and then I would go backstage and vomit, like I'm not even kidding.
I mean, also too, remember Six Flags, we're talking about spring, summertime, peak time.
Yep.
Oh my God. I mean, before Fright Fest, we're even talking about like I've been to the Jersey one, and that Batman show definitely was like people love going to that show, especially those summer camps that I absolutely hate. All them summer camp kids going into that area. My favorite part, I think everybody's, is when Batman goes with the Batmobile. I think, like it's like he just shoots out of somewhere, and it's like, but realizing like I had so much respect for those performers because, like you said, it's brutal. And one wrong move, and you can crack a vertebrae, you can break an arm, anything can happen.
Yeah, it unfortunately, you'd see it all the time. It was very brutal, and it happened in the middle of one of my shows. And that show only ran. Fun fact: it only ran 2 years. That show was so brutal on the performers that they were like, I think we're going to be done after my full year there. They were like, no more Catwoman show. They took it down and turned the venue into something else. But we had a Batman fall off a very high zip line, and he compressed his spine, and it was right in the middle of a show. And I remember they can't do anything until they clear the venue out. And I remember it was like the longest. It took like 20 minutes, and it was just the longest 20 minutes watching him sit there on the concrete, you know. And it's a whole different, you know, it's a whole different world. Yeah. But it was, you know, I learned a lot, and it was great. And Fright Fest, I did that too. You know, I was in the Dead Man's Party, and that was my favorite show to be in of all time, even though it was a 35-minute dance show and you would die.
Wait, so were you one of those people that would scare people too?
Yes. Well, we couldn't really do that. Once we got into our makeup and our costumes, which was a heck of a process, we really had to stay in the dressing room.
Gotcha.
We would do 2 to 3 shows for Fright Fest, 2 to 3 shows a day, you know, on the weekends. And the problem was people would recognize you. You know, they'd be like, yeah. So if you went out of the dressing room, you had to really like, because you couldn't get to anywhere. You couldn't go eat. You couldn't do anything. That show had the craziest like groupie fan base I have ever.
Well, I mean, you're also dealing with Batman and Marvel and DC fanatics alike. And when it comes to Batman, Catwoman, Robin, Fiddler, and whoever you want to name, these people take their characters serious. I mean, they see you because ultimately, if they don't see Catwoman at Six Flags, all they can really see is Catwoman in a movie. And that's a celebrity that is like so far from them, they're not able to reach them. So you're really kind of honestly the best thing close to it. And I mean, I definitely give it up to you hearing that story. I remember you were telling me about it and realizing how much of a toll it took on you, but also the cast. And a 2-year run seems like a short time for other people, but for a strenuous act like you guys have done for 3 to 5 shows a day, and 3 to 5 days a week, I mean, kudos to you that, you were able to, move on from that with as minimal damage as possible compared to other people.
Yeah, I think I only ended up in the hospital like once or twice. It wasn't so bad.
Well, I mean, I would say kind of that transition from the Catwoman life to the dance life was a lot easier. So now that kind of brings me to what kind of got you into this dance life that most of us know.
Yeah, the dance community is so crazy. I think it started when I was teaching ballroom for many years with a new studio that opened here in North Carolina. And I loved it because I love dance, and I was like, oh my God, this is great. Like I'm teaching dance at a ballroom studio. Fantastic. But I remember there was always something that felt off to me. Something was like, it was missing, it felt off. And I specifically remember one night that kind of changed my life. I took my students out to a salsa club. And this is nothing against ballroom, but this is, just my personal experience. I took them to the salsa club, and I was like, nobody can lead or follow anyone but, it was not the same. Something they can't lead them, they can't follow them, they can only lead and follow each other. Mm-hmm. And I was like, but I want them to dance like that, but that's not what I'm teaching them. And it was just like, I was like, I don't want to teach ballroom anymore. I mean, I literally was like, I'm done. I don't want to teach ballroom anymore. I was like, this doesn't feel right to me. Something is missing. And at that time, I really had no knowledge of what that was. I just had this gut feeling that, like, as beautiful as it was and as much I learned from it, it just wasn't for me. So, I did eventually start going out to the clubs here. And I think I just got really sucked in. I was like, oh, I know what's missing. It was the flavor. It was the spice. It was all of the ingredients. To me, it felt like boxed food versus like real cuisine, So I slowly just started getting like sucked in, and I would go by myself. I really didn't feel that I needed anyone. I was like, I'm just going to go and just have fun. And I started meeting people, and this community was just so much fun, just seeing those people over and over again in that fun, safe environment. I was like, yeah, this is where I want to be. So, there was a couple people that I worked with. There was a couple teams that I was on, and then that whole thing kind of segued slowly into samba.
Yes, and we'll definitely get into that. But realizing too, like you said, kind of your friends going out and that you being exposed to this kind of new scene in a sense of, because like you said, with ballroom, a lot of ballroom that I see normally is competition based, or they have their specific showcases for it. Yep. I think especially for our dance scene, whether it's bachata, salsa, sometimes it can seem a little more underground. Don't get me wrong, you have your competitive side to it. But a lot of different cities, they always have the clubs or restaurants that after 10, 11 o'clock, it turns into a Latin night. And then you kind of get a lay of the land in a sense. For a person who's never been exposed to it, it's like, whoa, a whole new world here.
They do. Whenever I bring someone new, they're like, oh my God, this happens here? It's like dirty dancing. What is this?
But also, like you said, having that understanding of you being a classically trained dancer, and then also seeing the deficiencies and seeing the errors and the flaws within these communities, because I don't think a lot of people understand, but a lot of dancers that we know, professional dancers, many of them started as ballroom dancers. Many of them started as ballet dancers. My personal opinion, and many people can disagree, when it comes to bachata or like salsa dancing, I tell from my personal experience, it's great to have classical training, but I don't want people to think that's the end all be all. Yeah. Because there's so many other factors that go into it. There's so much training from different styles and genres that you should be exposed to besides ballroom and ballet. The Cuban styles, even with samba. I absolutely, after seeing with you and so many other YouTube videos, I can't wait to one day go to Brazil and just go to Rio and go to those events and just film and just be part of that experience. So now that we get to that, how did Jenny get into that samba world?
Man, Yeah, that I'm still like, I still look back and follow that path, and I'm just like, whoa, that's wild. So basically, when I was Latin dancing, I was kind of recruited into a show. And they were like, oh, no, you can follow anything. I'll just teach you the choreography, and you're going to do the show, and we're going to do it, and you'll get paid, and it'll be fine. And I remember I was so hesitant. I was like, I don't really know how to dance samba. Like, I don't know. I really don't, you know. And I got kind of talked into it, having really no knowledge, no understanding, no nothing. And I think this happens a lot. I see a lot of Latin dancers that are like, well, yeah, I have Latin dance experience, so I can do samba. And I was like, you know, now I know better. Whoa, like, I'm not giving you my knowledge, not with that. You know? So at that time, so I did it. You know, I sucked it up and I did it. And I remember I don't know if I felt like I owed it to myself or to samba, but after that, it was like boom, triggered. I was like, no, I really want to learn samba now. Like I really want to like invest in like learning this. So I started just trying to self-teach because there was nowhere to learn. I didn't have the connections I have now to be able to reach out to an instructor in Brazil that I hung out with and while I was down there and be like, hey, can I take some privates with you? I was going off of videos. I was studying pasistas. I was, you know, like, okay, how do I do this? And then I kind of, Adriana Freiberger and I, you know, she's Isabel's sister, we kind of connected, and she was coming out to my area from Charlotte every Wednesday. And she had reached out to me and she was like, hey, I saw you're doing some samba stuff. Like, I'm also trying to do some samba stuff. Now she's been to Brazil. She speaks Portuguese. She had a lot of the knowledge, and, you know, it was just kind of like this beautiful moment. And it happened, and it was perfect. So we started training together every Wednesday, and you know, Crystal, who is my assistant director in the Raleigh area now, we would get together every Wednesday and we would train samba. And we didn't 100% know what we were doing, but we were trying really hard. And we didn't have any, like I said, we didn't have anything to go off of at that time. We were just doing the best that we could.
Yeah.
And I say that with so much confidence now. You know, it takes like a little bit of a vulnerable moment to be like, I didn't really know what the hell I was doing. I didn't have the resources. But it just kind of escalated. And we did have some people looking out for us along the way. You know, we had some mentors that kind of came in and they were like, hey, love what you're doing, would love to help. We did have some connections that popped up, and it just kind of, you know, the momentum started going.
Yeah.
And we started getting more confidence, and that's how NC Brazilian Arts Project was born. For, you know, Brazilian movement arts, capoeira, we have samba, we have our own musicians, even our own singer at this point. So we started upping our game quite a bit. We were like, okay, we're getting this. And that's where we started pushing ourselves. Hey, if we're going to learn this right, then we're going to go to Brazil.
Yeah. Ultimately, you got to go
with the best coaches in the world from Brazil, because, you know, nobody in the US here is going to be able to give us that amount of knowledge. So it was just a trickle effect. And I started noticing, because I think I was already semi-involved in the Latin dance community, I was so thankful that people started reaching out to me and being open to like, hey, we'd love to have you and your team. Hey, we'd love to have you come teach, which is something I never really thought would happen. It was never my goal per se.
Yeah.
But I'm so thankful that people were noticing that, because, man, we put so much work into it. And sometimes I even question if I want to, like, you know, put my samba in the Latin dance community, because I'm like, I don't know if people understand how much work we put into this craft.
I mean, from my visual standpoint of seeing the training that goes involved, even in Brazil, they have, I think, like samba marathon. And I mean, that is the ultimate workout. I mean, if I had a Fitbit right now, my steps would be on the hundreds of thousands, I would say.
It was brutal. I mean, it was brutal, quite frankly. It was, but I had to keep telling myself, they do this every day. Like,
yes,
you need to, like, not complain right now that you don't have air conditioning or water, or that you've been training in the summer heat for 2 hours straight. Like, I remember just telling myself, like, suck it up and get through it. You got a few more hours. You're going to be fine. If you die, somebody will revive you.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I was just like fanning over watching you in your travels in Brazil and seeing that male teacher who was known as like one of the best instructors, like really giving you that teaching, that, you know, that real, honest, transparent, We're not going to baby you. You, especially, I would think, especially coming from the States, they're assuming that you want to be babied. But, realizing I could tell through our talks how really samba has affected your life, understanding,
Oh,
how it's influenced you, but also you being now to influence another group of women, but another group of dancers in general with that. Because, like you said, being from North Carolina, where you're from, you don't have many resources. So you kind of have to outsource, or you have to research yourself and find, the correct way of doing things. And,
yeah.
I'd say this honestly, from also seeing you then incorporating the samba into the dance scene and our uh, festivals and congresses and weekenders, I think was great because it was refreshing. It was still bringing a Latin flavor. And also, I think people don't get there is a Brazilian community within our salsa and bachata community. It's,
Hmm.
it's usually people just don't ask.
Yeah.
So seeing that there is a community that supports it who are Brazilian, but also you're exposing a new collective of people to
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. We actually have a really big, well, we have a pretty prominent figure here in North Carolina,
Mhm.
Kaique Hidel, and he's from Bahia, and he has kept Brazilian soul alive here. I
Yeah.
mean, we just did. I don't know if anyone got to catch it, but we did a virtual. He normally does a carnival every year, and it's wildly successful.
Mhm.
He rents out like basically a concert venue. I mean, it's so obviously we couldn't do that this year,
Mhm.
but we did a virtual version of it, and helped raise money for like children in Bahia, Salvador, and Rio, like different programs, and with Alex,
Mhm.
the guy who I train with as well, to help provide groceries, food, water,
Yeah.
so arts to the kids in Brazil. So yeah, it really has changed my life a lot, and I think that when you develop these close relationships, and I feel sad that this is lacking in the dance community a lot, because
Mhm.
I think it would change things. But having gone there and developed these close relationships with these people who now I train, with 3 to 5 days a week,
Yeah.
every single week, and them just saying, hey, like, you know, you're responsible for carrying on our message at this point, because we're training you, and they're sharing their culture so much. But it has changed my life. I wake up every day and I'm like, can I make a difference there? What can I do to help Brazil? Like, how can I help? I feel like I'm always, how can I help? What do you need? What's missing? So it's a symbiotic relationship, and I think that is so important when you're dealing with these dances. So it really has. It's I can't tell you how many shows I've passed up at this point, because I'm like, I don't think that it's in alignment with how I feel about this dance. Like your thought and my thought, like we're not just a Vegas showgirl. This is much deeper
Yes.
than, yeah. So
Absolutely. What you just said was key because I think that's a big problem in the dance community. I think it really comes also really, and I can say this from my personal experience, it comes from the promoters. It comes from the organizers directly.
yeah.
Because again, we have the consumers, which are the attendees that pay for these events, but it's also the promoters, organizers that overall dictate what's going to happen and what will not happen. Also, talking about the creative side of not using this style of dance as a gimmick,
Right.
respecting the art form because it's more than just the costumes,
Oh yeah.
also the time and the effort and the hard work that you all put in, because just like those same acts that go on from bachata acts, and now I'm going to be totally real, uh, whoever's going to hear this, to be honest with you, Jenny's routines with samba and her ladies are a lot more entertaining than some of the routines that many of the routines I've seen or have filmed over the years. And that's totally honest because as a videographer, we film so much. We have so much footage, and I'm going to be again real. There are a lot of boring performances. And it's also because a lot of dancers, whether they're professional or not, are complacent. And when you have acts like yourself that are new, that are vibrant, everyone is looking for a fault. And I think as a dance community as a whole, we can't talk about inclusion while still being exclusive. We can't talk about change when we're still staying the same. And I think when you're talking about a dance festival, like when they call these different events that we see in a flyer dance festival, you can't then say, oh, why is samba here? Because that discredits the whole premise of your event. If it was a bachata specific festival, I understand. Just like too, I've seen in other festivals, it could be a hip hop festival. You might have a little Latin act or an acrobatic act. Great. That's because the promoters and organizers understand bringing in new talent, bringing in new styles gives people different visuals because we do get bored seeing the same routine, seeing the same turn patterns, the same dips. It gets boring quick and the same tricks. So for me, seeing and understanding your vision of what you were doing, I appreciated it so much more because there are other people that could be in your position that would think the opposite and just say, yeah, I'm a gimmick. I just
Yeah.
need money and I'm going to travel. I'm going to do what I want because I'm going to make my money. But for you, I appreciated because I remember we talked about this in Unity and you told me why you were doing things. And then you saying how you want to give back to that community in Brazil. That
Yeah.
when I heard that, I was saying, this is the person that I need to make sure that I learn from you and many other people that think like that because the dance community can't talk about giving back to the people if on a Monday nothing changes.
Right. No,
If you're
yeah.
going to do an event in New York, if you're going to do an event in New Jersey, if you're going to do an event somewhere else, and you specifically say in your messages and your missions and objectives about giving back to the community, that doesn't stop on a Monday. You actually need to put things in place that are further going to help your community. And I think now it kind of brings me and segues me into understanding really the creation and your role within, I can see it on your shirt now, BailaCura, the nonprofit organization. And I would love for you to kind of expound on that, on your role and really the creation of it and why it became.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, BailaCura was founded by Matthew actually, and Matthew had cancer, and luckily he came out. He came out on the up, and I think that for him at that time, dance was a little bit of a saving grace. That he had the community on his side, and even though nobody owed anyone anything, it's just what we do. The good people in the community are always looking out for one another and always trying to uplift each other. So that's kind of what happened. And when Matthew was well, I remember him just saying, like, I want to give back. He was so enthusiastic. He was like, never like poor me. He was like, I want to give back to the community. I want to do something amazing. Like, I want to do something that's never been done. And he was like, I want to hold a festival and that raises money for cancer research because that's my way of giving back. And he was like, it can't be that hard, right? And I was like, I don't know if it's that hard. I've never run one before. Mm-hmm. And he was like, well, I think we can do it, and he's also military. So his logistical mindset is insane. He can just sit down, it's on paper and he's like, and I'm like, well, I'm the artistic, so that doesn't work for me, but I can like, I can visualize it and put it into place. You can put it on paper after. So I remember we were like, are we going to do this? Like there was a lot of talk for a little while. And in the beginning, it was really just the two of us. And then we brought Daryl in, who Daryl is actually on the mob community now. And Daryl is the director of the National Institute of Health and Safety here in North Carolina. So Daryl came in and gave us a lot of guidance. And although at that time he was like, well, I've never even been to a dance festival. I don't know what you want from me. We were like, let's do this. So we started small, we started with a, I shouldn't even say small. We did a large weekender to start. We didn't have the hotel setting. We had more of like we had a really beautiful venue to host the gala and the performances and the workshops, and then offsite hotel situation. just to test, is this going to work? Is this going to go over well? We don't, and it did. It worked. And from that point on, we started growing, and every year, luckily, we kind of almost doubled. So there was a lot of momentum going, and it's been, it's 100% nonprofit. So nobody working on that event takes a penny. We never have. We hope that we never will in the future.
Yeah.
Although the workload doesn't get any lighter sometimes. But, we take all of those funds and we donate them to cancer research and pediatric care. So we've worked with Ronald McDonald House. Sometimes we change and we do different organizations. And then we also take that money and try to donate it to dance community members that may or may not have, a child that is in need of support at the moment. So that's kind of, that's been it. And for BailaCura now, we've grown a lot. We have a much larger team now. We have a board of people, and then we also have, we have a pretty solid volunteer staff. And so I've moved more into a role with Patrick now of just artistic director, although we do, we still do a lot of various things. And we're trying to grow more as an organization as well, in that we're not just 100% dependent on the festival to help bring those resources and those, financial benefits from. We're trying to do things throughout the year. We're trying to do things like, actually, Matthew and I are going to be helping Ronald McDonald House out in April with their virtual gala. We're going to be teaching dance and stuff there. So trying to really, really be involved. And that's how we're giving back to the community. It's partially the dance community. It's partially our own local community.
Yes.
But, I just feel there's a really big difference for me when you have those instructors and those dancers and they're just in it. They're in it and they're in it and they're in it and they're not giving anything back. And, I just don't want to, we prefer not to be those people. If we have the means, we want to help make the change. So
Absolutely. I mean, for me, over my many years of dancing, being in this industry, I've realized that there are so many dancers like yourself, but when they don't have that help, they don't feel, or that support, they don't feel like things will change. But realizing you yourself, aligning yourself with people from BailaCura, who really, like you said, is giving back to the dance community. You're giving back to the local community. And I think that's so much more important, because also within the dance community, we also have family members that have dealt with cancer, that have dealt especially with pediatrics and children, and realizing that, hey, these diseases, these illnesses happen to all of us in some form or fashion, whether we know people, whether we've been affected by it personally, and realizing that you're not just talking about it, you're doing the work. And it shows, and realizing, like you said, with BailaCura being a nonprofit organization and solely focused on giving back, I think also promoters and organizers should start putting in place measures that, hey, you can profit from your event, but at the same time, find a way to give back to that community, because people remember after many years, people definitely remember those organizers that really are focused solely on themselves. And I love that we're talking about this and realizing that, from your honest opinion, how you felt about things going over the last few years, because whether it's your classical training, whether it's your samba training, you being in the dance world, traveling, you have experience. So you understand what's really being seen in front of you. And also from our experience, we've seen things go great and we've seen things go haywire. So we definitely understand. But I think now it kind of leads us slowly towards our conclusion. Where we'll get to my segment called The Randoms, which is about 10 questions that allows myself and the audience to get to know you a little bit better. But before we get started, I would love to share this quick video clip of one of my favorite social dances that actually has you and one of my former guests on the podcast and a very close friend, Mr. Mikey G. So everyone, tune into a very special video with the one and only Jenny and Mike.
Olvidarte más quiero llamarte, ay perdón, perdóname, por más que quiera soltarte, más quiero besarte, ay perdón, perdóname, por hablar de locura, amarte ya no tiene cura, y se me ha vuelto una tortura, no poderte ver, por hablar de locura, recuerdo nuestras travesuras, hacerlo contigo en el auto y la gente que no pudo ver. Ay, perdóname, perdóname, por más que quiera olvidarte, más quiero llamarte. Ay, perdón, perdóname, por más que quiera soltarte, más quiero besarte. Ay, ay, yo sigo pensando que tú estás ahí, cuando me despierto ya no estás ahí. Por andar rompiendo por ahí, ahí. Ay, ay. Yo sigo pensando que tú estás ahí. Cuando me despierto y ya no estás ahí. Por andar rompiendo por ahí,
Oh my God. Everything there hits. I mean, oh man, I when I saw that, I was like, hey, right before I talk, I was like, let me just search Jenny because I know she has tons of stuff. Of course, your profile and everything, subscribe, which I did. Um, yes, but when I saw that video with you and Mikey, and knowing how special with Mikey, just how he is as a person, as an organizer, being with the Myrtle Festival, just realizing there's certain dancers like yourself that just ooze honestly not just confidence but genuineness because when I'm watching you dancing it's not like a camera's there, and that's something I appreciate because being a performer at one point then stepping away and having the lens like you've seen me do, you see how many people I film, but then there's a reason I put specific people in my visuals because it really, I don't just focus on from the neck down. I focus on also the top and making sure the facial expressions, the emotion is carried because seeing you and Mikey dance, it just made me smile. One, because I miss having socials, but two, I miss filming dances like those. And big shout out to Dennis Martinez from Delo Mio Media, who shot that amazing video and captured that special moment because it's those moments like that that kind of, that really make us smile and miss what we had. And honestly, I believe, and definitely in the future, we'll be coming back to a safer community, hopefully. And, knowing that people like me and you will be around and making those changes.
I hope so. I hope so. I've had some weird, epiphanies or whatever you
Yeah.
want to over this past year, and I'm like, what do I want to do with my time? My time has become so valuable, and I know a lot of people right now are like, oh my god, I feel like I have nothing but time. But it's not felt that way for me. It's felt, in fact, very, very different. I've redirected it in so many ways, given the circumstances, and I miss the dance community so much. But there's a part of me deep down inside that's like, I don't know how much of my time I'm going to give to it. I'll always be dancing. I'll always be giving back to the community, whether it's in Brazil or whether it's through BailaCura. But there's also, the things we talked about. Does it feel like it's in alignment? Is it authentic with who I am at this point? And that's the part that's changed a little bit, just to be honest. But people like you make it a lot more enjoyable to be able to return for sure. And yeah, that was definitely one of my favorite dances.
I appreciate it because we understand there's so many people that come in this dance community. And this year, like I've told many artists on this podcast, it's been a time of self-reflection.
Sure.
For all of us, but in different ways. I think self-reflection and reflecting also on others' character and realizing when things are almost at their lowest points. For me, and I'm going to say this before we get into our segment, my biggest disappointment was seeing people disregard any form of safety, even after knowing people personally that they know that have passed from this not taking those same measures
Yeah.
and almost saying, well, the first thing I would hear is the word or even the letter I. And what you did was you took yourself and made it a selfish decision to say, I'm going to go somewhere and I'm going to have fun. And not also realizing that with our dance community, with this virus, especially when it was hitting at its peak, which it still is at certain points, but when it was really ravaging every city. I mean, when I found out there was coronavirus in Antarctica, I said, no, this is one of
Did not even know that.
yeah. It was literally, I believe, in almost every country and every continent. But especially in New York, my biggest thing was seeing people doing events at the pier, seeing hundreds of dancers that I knew, and most of them not being safe. But also me saying, you know what? I'm going to take that responsibility. And now that I have a platform, I'm going to speak respectfully on how I feel about it. I'm very disappointed in many dancers, but also realizing my voice is going to hurt my financials in the future. But I'm fine with that because it made me understand in that self-reflection to know if at a lowest point you could care less about what's happening to other people, I could certainly care less about helping film your event in the near future. And for me, it's about us having the understanding of, hey, when things are safer, our community is going to look a lot different. A lot of events are going to still be around. Many events are going to pop back up new, and some events aren't going to be happening anymore. But for me, realizing it's people like you and many others that I know and I talk to as well, just reaching out and letting you all know that your efforts aren't unnoticed. And the stuff that you're doing in BailaCura, the stuff that you're working with the samba community, but also your personal life. I want people to know is that I care more than just another dancer. I care about the people like you as a person. That's why I love having people like you on, because I want people to understand Jenny before the Jenny they saw at the Congress. I want people to understand Jenny from her younger days. I want people to even know you were Catwoman at Six Flags. It's like stories that go back, but it allows people now to have a better connection with you, because in the future, whenever you do attend an event, someone who sees this can say, wow, I learned this about you that I probably wouldn't have known at an event or a Congress. So, for me, having you on, being able to learn a little bit more about you in the time that we have is so valuable. And for me, it's like, I want everyone to realize that, hey, a person like yourself is so valuable in our community because you look beyond yourself. You look beyond the word I. And that's something I truly appreciate.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now we have some time of levity and some joy now. It should be some fun to my segment called the Random. 10 questions or so that help gauge my understanding of my guests, including yourself, and it helps me and the audience learn a little bit more about you. So all I need to know is when you are ready.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Number 1, favorite food.
Oh, this is a hard question for me.
Okay.
Sushi.
All right. What kind of sushi?
Also a tough question. I am gonna go with anything that has like salmon or tuna.
Okay, I'm gonna make this even better. How about this? You got 3 choices: California roll, salmon roll, shrimp tempura roll.
Ooh, shrimp tempura.
All right, I like you even more. I love it. I love it. All right. All right, number 2. Even though I showed this video with Mikey, I need to know, besides Mikey, if you could dance with one other lead, who would that be?
This is so hard. Geez, I don't even know how to answer this question. There was like a mystery person in Brazil that was like the best Zouk lead ever, and I can't even give you his name.
All right. So what about in the States?
Okay, in the States. Man, this is tough. Give me a genre.
Bachata.
Bachata. Oh man. How do I, Mike is amazing. Oh God, I can't even think of my favorite lead. It depends on what mood I'm in.
If you're talking about, are you more of a traditional, sensual, modern?
I love everything. I do. I love my all of the bachata. Man, that's a tough question. I can't even.
I don't think you want me to do the 3 names. I can give you 3 names.
And I'll just give you my favorite out of this.
Okay. All right.
I'm not watching, getting mad at me. Like,
no problem. All right. We're gonna go. I'll put Mikey. We'll put Mikey G. Mikey G.
Okay.
Do you know Leo Cato?
Yeah, of course.
Of course, because you know why? Because he was standing right next to you dancing with Jamonta in that video.
Well, I also assisted him at Unity the year that we met. So.
Got you. So you got Leo, you got Mikey. Let me see.
Dang, this is tough already.
Because there's so many dancers. There's so many. Let's see. Who is another one of your favorite dancers as a lead?
Oh, I might have to pick a woman on this one.
I like that. That's why I said lead, because there's some amazing female leads that do a lot better than traditionally men.
I've had a couple of females that I was like, boom, what?
Wait, how about, do you know Tina Cavicchio?
Yeah, she's amazing.
Tina, Leo, and Mikey, who are you choosing?
Oh, God. That's a really tough 3. I'm going to still go with Mikey.
Okay. Mikey G, you have won, my friend. I think
you danced the most, so it's the most memorable right now, too.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Perfect. I love how these questions are going. And that's still actually the second question. It was just like 2, 2A, 2B, 2C. All right. Number 3, dream vacation destination.
Ooh, the Maldives.
Man, Maldives has been a really key one these last few episodes. I got to check that out. Hopefully the price is a lot cheaper now, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm going to get there soon.
Yeah. So next question. What did Jenny want to be at 10 years old?
Oh, dang. I think something with animals. I don't think I wanted to be a veterinarian, but I think I was coming up with these wild scenarios in my head where I would just work with animals.
Like a zoo handler.
Yeah, or what I used to talk about when I was little? I wanted to be a curator. So I wanted to set up the exhibits and take care of the animals, either in the aquarium as a marine biologist or
at 10 years old. Wow, that's interesting.
I was all about the animals. I wanted to train them. Probably wanted to be a dolphin trainer too. One of those.
Oh man, those are interesting. Those are definitely interesting. So this next question actually ties into that last answer. What would you consider your spirit animal to be?
Ooh, a wolf.
And is it because you love that you can be in a group, but also can be alone?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. And I just love their wild soul. They could be alone and they're just totally wild. They're free to do with what they want, but they also work well in a pack and they're just mysterious. I love them. Nice.
All right. Next question. What is a huge, and this is a question I love asking every dancer because the answers are so endless. What is a big don't for people dancing with you? I think I know one of those because you had it in an answer in the GoLatinDance.com interview you had that I saw about concentration. What is a really, really big pet peeve besides concentration when it comes to dancing with another lead or another follow?
Yeah, just don't be rough, I hate when people are peacocking. That is when they, like I said, they're more worried about what I had said on Go Latin Dance. For those who didn't get to read it, when you're dancing with somebody and they're more concerned about where my cat's trying to get in. They're more concerned about where the camera is.
Yes.
How close they are to the front stage and DJ booth, or who's watching them or who's videotaping them, I will walk away. I will gladly be, I'm going to take my time someplace else. That to me is just so uncomfortable because as you know, normally I'm following, although I do love leading, but if you're expected to follow and you're supposed to have your attention on them, I just really appreciate dances where it's the same. And the reason I love that dance with Mikey so much is because you're right. Like the camera, I think we like acknowledged it maybe one time.
Yes, but you were just so enthralled in your experience.
That's the part of social dancing that I love so much. And that's the part that made it so different from ballroom. So that's the part that was missing for me. So when I'm social dancing, I just want to have that moment with that person, that like beautiful escape, you know, where nothing else matters. That's the part that I love. And then it gets even worse when they're peacocking, when they're showing off. So not only are they more concerned about what's going on around you than you, but they're like showing off to the point where your connection is breaking. The timing might be off. You can't. And I'm like, just, you know, they're fluffing their tail feather and you're like, I could go to the bar for 5 minutes and come back if that's what you want.
Oh God. I mean, I wish more people would like that. I mean, as you see me as a videographer, there's so much footage I film, but I think, you know, too, there's a lot I probably haven't put in my videos because that notion of peacocking is endless. When one person sees the camera and they're just like doing everything to be sensational, and the other person they're dancing with is like, I just want to dance. Like, I'm not really worried about. Yeah. And that's why for me, I think you and many other people know when I film, I try not to have a light, or if I do, it's in a way that it's inconspicuous to you, that I don't want you to feel the bright lights are on you. I want you to be in your natural setting, because I think that's a really big problem with a lot of dancers.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. We appreciate when we need that action shot. You give it to us, great. But for me, when I go to events, like, just be natural. You don't have to like show off, because most of the time it's only you showing off. The other person looks crazy and they're like, what are we doing? And that's why you're not in the video, because the person you're dancing with looks scared.
Yeah.
And you know,
when you're following, you're being vulnerable. You're like, okay,
yes.
I'm letting you manipulate my body. I'm letting you lead me, and you know, so I expect care with that.
I agree. And before we get to the next question, I think too, when it comes to social dancing, especially bachata, please, leads, you do not have to dip the girl 5 to 10 times.
Yeah.
You don't have to. I get it. Sensual bachata means connection, but there is a thing called space. And there is moments that the follows do need their space. So please, leads, in the future, give your follows a lot more space. They don't need for 5 minutes to be clinged on to you, unless they want to. But
no,
it's true. I think when they see the performance, they think, oh my God, we're about to have a performance on the social dance floor.
Something to think about, you know, like, what are the message?
Priorities here. Absolutely. All right. Next question. What would be your superpower?
Oh, I would fly. Yeah.
I mean, you can get to everywhere you got to go in a good amount of time. I mean, if there were socials and events and congresses, you can go to one place to another, have everything situated. So hopefully that can be done in the next decade, or even less, hopefully, for some. So next question is, what is your favorite dancing city?
Oh, so hard. Man. Okay. Can I split it up by genres a little bit?
Absolutely.
All right. So obviously, I'm just going to throw this out there. I don't think that, like, it is so hard to say that you've experienced really good Zouk until you've gone to Brazil. When I danced Zouk there, I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I was so fortunate. I stayed in an Airbnb about 3, 4, I don't know. It was a couple blocks away from Jaime Orocha's dance studio. Mm-hmm. And while I was there for 2 months, I got an unlimited pass. And when I tell you, I would get home from samba training, Adriana and I would like shove some food down our throat, take a quick shower, and run down to the studio. And we would stay there all night, 2 hours, 3 hours. We would dance as much as we could. By the time we left, even though I didn't speak a lick of Portuguese, I would be assisting.
Mhm.
Trying to dissect what I'm saying. I was assisting. So, and then when we went to a social there, oh my God, forget it. I was like, oh, this is Zouk. Oh, wow. You know, like it was just wild. So I would have to say for Zouk, yeah, you have to go to Brazil. It's a whole different. And of course, I have to acknowledge like Sammy hosted a really freaking amazing. DC was my favorite place for Zouk other than Brazil. And I also have to acknowledge like Sammy was always so good about supporting the Brazilian arts. That's why we would always, he would always come to BailaCura and he would always support us. He never wanted a penny. And he would always, every year, he'd be like, well, we can't have DC Zouk without your samba team. And, he would always support us there too. So big shout out, lots of prayers for Sammy, with that being said. But so yeah, that's Zouk. For bachata, I mean, I do love dancing some bachata in DC as well.
Mm.
And then for salsa, I don't know. North Carolina's got a really strong salsa game. I don't know if it's my favorite, but
okay.
Shout out to my community for that one. Like between Beto and the Cobos and Pedro and Bethany. Oh yeah, we have a surprisingly strong salsa community here.
I love it. I love that people remember the names. You are just honest about and I love that you split up the genres of just Brazil and I definitely appreciate it. All right, next question. And now I actually changed this question around because your experience in Brazil. I wouldn't say my first question, but a question I do have pertaining to Brazil. Were you a fan of many of the delicacies of Brazil? Like the foods or the snacks and stuff like that?
It's mixed. Their food is so plain. And with a US palate that's heavily flavored and salted and sugared and everything, it's a little you're like, oh man, there's not a whole lot of flavor explosion happening. But at the same time, they had the most amazing fresh juices that I would get almost every day. I mean, the fruit there is a whole different thing. And their breads are made of not a lot of wheat. It's potato and tapioca and stuff like that. Yeah. So a lot of tapiocas. Obviously you can't go there and not get a caipirinha. You have to get a caipirinha.
Yeah.
I would get one every night, just to be completely transparent. That was my muscle relaxant when I was so much.
Yeah.
But they would, they make it on the beach with they put half a pineapple in this thing and they're just and the mint and the ginger, everything is so fresh. So it was hard for me to come back, after having been here for a while. And I was craving all these things that you just can't get here because the quality is not quite the same. But, and the seafood was really good. But at the same time, some of the meals took a little bit of getting used to, the porquillo style meals and whatnot. So
are you a pan de queijo fan?
I am now. Queijo, and I would eat tapioca with banana and queijo every morning there.
Oh my God.
I can say queso. I have to really think about it. But
So the question pertaining to that is a person coming from the States coming to Brazil.
Yeah.
And you told them you could have the first meal or the first snack you need to have coming to Brazil. What is it?
I mean, I would just go straight for a caipirinha. But
okay, there you go. I mean, wait. Right. If we're going to go for a person who does not drink.
Okay. Either a tapioca or an acai, or they have these little, I don't eat meat, so I didn't eat these, but a coxinha is, it's it has chicken and it's in a little, with cheese and it's in a little bread. So, so most people will go straight to the coxinha, but for me, it was more the vegetarian stuff or the pescatarian stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. All right. So next question, which is our second to last question. What is a special talent that many people wouldn't know you have?
Besides the whip?
Yes, besides the whip.
Oh, talent. Ooh. Man. I like to garden.
I mean, that's a talent. I mean, because not many people have patience to water plants and make sure they're not dying. I mean,
Yeah.
I give it up. I mean, do you have like a little garden in your area?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Definitely. It's not, it depends on the weather, it depends
Yeah.
on the season we have. It depends on a lot of things here in North Carolina, but I actually just started a whole bunch of seedlings the other day.
Oh,
And it was like, please let this be a really big garden, lots of kale and broccoli and tomatoes, cucumbers and herbs. And oh, I love it. I love it so much. Yeah.
awesome. All right. Well, last question. I'm switching it up from the normal last question I have would be is who are the three people that have been most influential to you at this point in your life?
Tough one. I mean, I have to go with.
And you can bunch people together, like family or specific people. You can bunch them into one.
Yeah. My family, number one, like my mom, my dad, my sister, they've been, my mom started me in dance at that young age.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that has tremendously, when I think back of all the roots and all the times I maybe tried to get away from dance, and it's always there. So without that, I don't think that my life would be anything near what it is now at all. So first and foremost that, influential people. There's so many. How do I narrow it down? I've had so many.
I would say you can go dance related too, even if you want to go from, yeah.
My aunt was another one. And although she's family, I do want to kind of separate her. Unfortunately, she did pass away from cancer. Mm-hmm. She had leukemia many years ago. But she was like a mom to me for many, many years. I actually did live with her for a while. And she was just the most amazing woman. Mm-hmm. They had so many animals in their house. And they just took such great care of these animals. They were just such kind. She was the kindest woman I have ever met in my life. And I think she shaped the way that I feel now about how I treat other people, about how I treat animals, just everything. I think that she did everything from a place of kindness. And it was so unfortunate because when she died, she didn't want to tell anybody. Like that's how, she didn't want to tell anybody that she was sick. She was like, oh, I have cancer and it's going to be fine. And then she was gone.
Yeah.
But she didn't want to take away from anybody's life. So she kept it so private that she was so sick so quickly. So thinking back, I learned so much from her. She was such an inspirational woman in my life. I would just like give everything to have her back,
Yeah.
And then in the dance community, I have to give a huge shout out to Lee.
Granquito.
Yeah, I have to give a huge shout out to Lee. I have just, especially over this past year, I have just watched him and Kat just thrive, and I know that they make a lot of their income off of dance, but he will always put everyone and everything else first, I feel like. So handling COVID in the way he did, getting innovative, like, hey, let's have online classes. Hey, let's do hot sauce. Like, to see people that just overcome the odds left and right.
Yeah.
And are just constantly trying to keep people in that positive state of mind. That's really, really cool. And Lee has also always been a really big supporter of everything samba that I've been doing here. He's been on board since day one. Like, okay, like you're the New Year's gig. Like you're going to come teach at all these events. You're going to be part of our online thing. And he's just such a motivator. I think that sometimes like people like that are, they can intimidate other people. Mm-hmm. He just has such a big heart, and him and Kat are just such sweet people. So I have to give him a huge shout out. He's a huge influencer for me as well, as a business person and just as a person, period.
Gotcha. So really kind of your family, but the second one would be specifically your aunt. And then the third one would be Lee. I definitely love those answers because I can see how you talk about each and every one of them, that smile, that memory that you have. Because again, I think through everyone we meet in our life, whether it's family oriented, friends, even friends who become family, everyone kind of lays their mark on us in their individual way, and realizing even people that are still around or those who aren't, unfortunately, their memory still lives on, and realizing that they've been able to shape your life in a positive way. And as well, here we have all the way from Florida, my Guy Lavelle.
Guy.
Yeah, showing some love to Jenny here, and realizing too again that with our dance community, I think too, even with COVID and everything, it's also shown us the dancers that really care about us, that understand or really care how we're doing as people. Because I think too, like you said, even with your inspirations of thinking of family, but also thinking of people in the dance community that have helped you along the way. Because so many times we're just trying to do it ourselves and make it ourselves, but it's okay to get some help. It's okay if people look at us and say, we see something in you and we want to help you become better. So,
Oh,
yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, people with more collaboration, more opportunities can arise. But again, if we don't start these conversations, then changes really won't be made. you
yeah.
know and at least I definitely feel like tonight's discussion that we've had has been amazing from top to bottom, from start to finish. And realizing as well, like I tell all of my guests, I feel like this first episode is a part one to many more parts that I would love to have. And like I told you as well, that I would love to have you on again and also have a panel. Have you, have Beto, have maybe some other people from North Carolina on the platform discuss their experiences, especially when it comes to Congress life and what that life is like. I'm talking about not just the parties till 6 and 7, but also when you have tech at 8 or 9. Yeah, so we definitely understand. Yeah, and as well, Guy had did ask about how you got started in the samba scene. Guy, I believe during around the middle or earlier part in the interview, she definitely did answer that question as well. But at least too, before we do finish out, I would love to know, Jenny, if you had any last few words for myself or the audience, but also contact info on how people can reach you for any future projects you may have.
Yeah, totally. So I do have a website now that makes things a little bit easier, jennygeska.com. You can find me on Instagram, Jenny Geska, Facebook, Jenny Geska. It's Jenny Geska on everything. So really easy to find. I'm also, unfortunately, on TikTok and Likey, but just contact me on one of the first ones. I do want to just quick message. Obviously, I want to bring up, Sammy one more time, guys. Anything. I know that Diamond's going to post a link at the end of this. And then there's a young man named Adrian, that's involved with, it's the son of one of the mob members, Patrick Tron. And he is undergoing some cancer treatments right now. And we have some things brewing with BailaCura to try to get some assistance. But if you go to, my page right now, my Facebook page, you can find out ways to support them as well. So again, just thinking of how we can help each other out.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, Jenny, I really do appreciate that we've been able to have this dialogue because even though it's not physical, it's virtual right now. I hope you can see as well that besides a performer, I really just care about you as a human being and realizing that you are safe. And you've been able to keep a level head in a sense, just everything that's going around. But again, you've been able to do that time of self-reflection and understanding what's in your best interest. I do hope when we do come back to a safer dance community that we can connect again. And it's people like me, you, and many others that really are doing things with the right intentions, and many people definitely see that. So again, I appreciate you coming on tonight for the live discussions with Diamond podcast. It's been a wonderful time. Thank you all that have been listening, anyone that's been commenting. It's been really a great time. I definitely can't wait to have you on in the future. And please, everyone, definitely have a safe night. And Jenny, definitely stay safe out there and safe.
And thank you again for having me. I really appreciate you allowing me to share a lot of that crazy info.
Yes. And I feel, again, what we're doing here is really giving a glimpse into your life, but we know it just goes so far beyond that. So definitely, everyone, be on the lookout for the next episode with Jenny Geska. Might be a panel, might be her alone. You never know. Might have a special guest coming on. But again, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, audience. Thank you, everyone, tuning also to BailaCura.com. And everyone, please have a safe night. Thank you all.